And I was like, that's probably the most brilliant, like, long-term strategy you could use for real estate.
So I want to introduce the world to my friend, Jason Odell. So, Jason, I like to start off this with eras of our life. So I've got 12 eras I've kind of gone through. Like, what are the eras, and how would you describe them? What are the stories with them?
So as a kid, a lot of outdoors. I remember when I was really young, we just ate soup all the time, and I grew up hating soup. Because I was like, I didn't want soup. Like, I eat soup now, but as a kid, there was like, I just remember weeks on weeks where we just didn't have a lot of money, and that was all we had for food when I was really little. Eventually that shifted in my more like junior high and high school, and I spent. The way I would make money in high school and junior high was just labor.
What'd you do?
I would anything: pull weeds, weed whack, run chainsaws, anything. I was very quiet as a kid. I'm still kind of quiet as an adult, but when I was a kid, I was really quiet.
Okay.
Very, very
Joe
shy.
made up for you?
Oh, my brother. Yeah, there you go. Joe definitely did. My mom would say that Joe kind of taught me how to talk. I taught him how to pee outside. When we were little. Because he was definitely a talker. He's a big extrovert. But I now call myself a social introvert.
Interesting, because I am too. I'm very much an introvert. Yeah. I do a lot of this stuff, but I'm actually kind of an introvert.
Yeah. For me, the social part didn't come until I got into my first kind of real job, quote unquote. Reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, some of that series in my 20s.
Classic.
And in this book, it talked about, work to learn, not to earn.
Yeah.
And I thought about that. I was like, okay, what skill set would I like to learn? And so I picked my first quote unquote real job that wasn't labor or anything like that, or just picking up whatever I could find. It was based on a skill, and that was sales. I think it was about 2009. Is that right? 2009, somewhere in there. I picked up a lot odd jobs, but then my first job, going back to that, was car sales, actually. And it's 100% commission, but they guarantee you minimum wage. But if you keep making minimum wage, you're just not going to work there for very long. So I remember 3 months in making minimum wage for the first 3 months, and I went, if I make minimum wage one more time, I'm going to quit, and I'm going to be an accountant or something like that.
Yeah.
Where I'm like counting, I don't know, something that doesn't have to deal with people, because this is really frustrating. And that was the last time I made minimum wage. I was the top 3 sales guy for almost every month. I was always in the top 3 for the next 18 months. I had a lot of customers that would come back, which is really unusual for the car industry. That's one of the reasons why they press so hard to keep you on the lot, because statistically you will never come back.
Right.
But I had this kind of weird stat where my customers actually would. I really learned a ton. I would never take that time back, those 2 years. So I probably finished up at the end of 2012. Just not where I wanted to go. Like, I was looking up. These other guys are making good money above me, up in the management, and they seemed to be pretty miserable from my perspective. I just didn't want to do that. So I started hunting for where else could I go? And that's how I got into mortgages, actually. So then I started in mortgages. That would have been at the beginning of 2013. That first year was really slow. It was definitely, that transition was financially really rough. Yeah.
I tell people 2 years. If you're going to get into this industry, whether it's lending or being an agent, you need 2 years of somehow you're going to make it.
I totally agree. Yeah.
That's the part people don't get. This industry is an industry that pays you to go to school.
Yeah. You learn so much. And I think in the sales, one of the things that's interesting about sales in particular is that you learn so much about yourself.
Oh, yeah. So you go from lending. How did you start barbecue?
Yeah. So,
I don't know if that's an era. Is that an era? Or?
It's when I was really young, one of the things I would do on Sunday, we come home from church, I'd always help my mom cook. But I found myself really enjoying like being in the kitchen, cooking. When I was young, I was actually really picky. And so I just started to find and make food that I really liked. And part of that was on a gas grill, doing hot dogs, hamburgers, and tri-tip. And so I kind of grew up with that as a kid. And so when I got married, my little gas grill blew over in the wind, broke. And I I was kind of interested in this thing called smoking. I've never done it before. And so I bought a Weber. And with a Weber, you're able to do grilling, smoking, indirect, direct, all that kind of stuff. And I get really fascinated on subjects to probably a slightly obsessive level.
I've noticed.
And so I just like, how do you make the best smoked chicken? And so books and reading and, the internet. But anyways, I just, the first time I smoked a chicken out of the Weber was the first thing I cooked out of this Weber. And not knowing really what I'm doing, I got some wood chips, I soaked them, and I got the smoke just like, this white, gray, like diesel truck, like kind of coming out of the top of the Weber. And we're sitting down, my wife and I eating. I'm thinking it's the most amazing thing. I've never smoked anything before. You get this really intense, ashy smoke flavor. And my wife, she didn't say anything at that time, but she'd tell you that was like the worst chicken. She was like, I hope he totally never does this again. And I didn't know. I'm just like, this is awesome. It's smoky. And prior to that, I always did like
You always love your own cooking better.
So that's kind of where I started. And it was just like this, something I would do on the weekends for fun. And I just kept going down the rabbit hole over time. And as I kept going down this rabbit hole, one of the things I was like, there's no commercial barbecues that you can buy that's going to get to the level that I want. I came up with this conclusion after doing some research. So then I started making barbecues. And that took me to a whole new level. And so, yeah, I mean, like the barbecues we use now, I built them.
Yeah.
Basically from YouTube. Like just a bunch of YouTube videos and some buddies and lots of long days, in the backyard.
So you built a business from YouTube videos?
Pretty much. YouTube, books. Yeah, I mean, anyone who says they don't know how to do something, I'm like, what
you don't want to learn something.
Yeah, because it's all there.
All right, next question. If you could go back 10 years and give yourself advice, what would you tell them?
I think a few things would be believe in yourself, be confident. I think one of the things is the other thing I would say is make mistakes. Feel confident in that making mistakes is a really good thing.
Right.
I think a lot of times I've, in the past and still, am afraid to slip up or make a mistake. However, what I know from my past history, it's those mistakes that I actually learn, shift, and move that make me better in every way possible. Like
if you feel like you should have made more mistakes, what should you have tried more of?
One of the things that I've shifted recently in the last probably 4 years as I grew the barbecue business is to go with the answer yes.
Okay. Yes theory.
Yeah. And essentially, because my first go-to is no.
Right.
I have no problem saying no. And now I'm in a space where, someone asks us to do something crazy in terms of catering event. Hey, can you go to Portland and do this wedding for da-da-da-da-da-da and all these things that we don't ever do, never done, and it sounds like a really bad idea. And I go, yeah, let me think about that. How could we make this work? And that's the question, right? How could this actually work? And so now instead of saying, no, we don't do that, it's like, how could this work for us and be a win? And so it's really just going into the creative side of how could this work versus just thinking automatically, no, there's no way that would work.
Okay, if you only had $100 and you had to double it tomorrow, how would you do it?
I mean, being a barbecue guy, the easiest answer for me is just flipping some barbecue really quick, buying some meat and turning it around and making it happen.
So where are you at on your buy a home a year adventure?
Okay. So I was in the mortgage business. There was a lady that I was doing a loan for. She was probably in her mid 60s. Really, really sweet lady. I was asking her what her job was in the past and those kind. And to me, I'm like, this lady, there's no way she made very much money and she has all these houses. So I keep asking questions. And so I was like, hey, so how did you get into real estate investing? And she laughed and she's like, well, when I was, 19, 20, I figured there'd be no Social Security when I retired. She's like, so I had to figure something out. So I made a plan that every about 7 to 10 years, I would move out of my house, save up for a down payment, and buy another house and turn that into a rental. Well, she did that about 4 or 5 times in her lifetime. at this stage. And at the height of like the market, let's see, probably in 2005, 2006, right in there before the crash, she sold one of her properties that she bought for like $30,000 that went for like $250 or something, and then paid off the rest of the loans. And then it had all these free just cash flow properties. And I was like, that's probably the most brilliant, like long-term strategy you could use for real estate. I'm like, one of the main decisions for the house we're in is an ADU.
House hack.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, we get a duplex for a single family home. And that covers about almost 3/4 of our mortgage payment. And when we move out, it'll cash flow
easy.
Yeah, pretty well.
People think it's so easy. Like if you had some success, they think, oh, it must be so easy. They just don't see the day-to-day and the risk you take, paying bills, getting debt, being scared.
There's a book I read. I can't remember the name of the book at the moment, but they have laws. And the first chapter is the law of the iceberg. Have you heard of this? On an iceberg, 90% of the mass of the iceberg is under the water. You can't actually see it.
Right.
So when you see an iceberg, you're only seeing 10%. And I think that's the point being, that's when you see someone successful, you're only seeing
no
10%.
idea.
Yeah, you're only seeing.
And you're starting a business where you were putting
We're
everything.
shifting
So
everything.
one of the best investments is in yourself,
Yeah.
which is what you did.
Yep, exactly. And to kind of touch on the real estate side, over the long term, it wins.
Right.
I mean, in the short term, if you're doing flips and that kind of stuff, that can go your way or it may not. But when I go back to my story with this older lady, she just played this long game.
Yep.
And again, you could look through history where the long game consists.
My clients that do flips have made some nice change. The clients that buy and hold are well. So, Jason, how can people connect with you and tell the world how you can serve them?
Touch on the connect piece. They could just text me.
Okay.
I'm totally cool with that.
Boom.
Instagram's another one. You can reach out Instagram. I'm on
At Odell Craft BBQ on Instagram.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep. And then in terms of serving, I mean, for me, I really believe Reading is an amazing space.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very dedicated to making it even better, and specifically in the hospitality food scene, bringing as much excellence.
Are you allowed to tell some of the secret things you're building?
So I think so. I don't know. I mean, this isn't, none of it's really public, but there is a restaurant concept that's been in the works, and there's still a lot to figure out. If it were to move quickly, it would be about 18 to 20 months out.
Okay.
But that would be so right now, for some people who may or may not know, we cater all the time. We'll cater any day of the week, any holiday, as long as it makes sense, right? We were talking about yes, and here's what we need local.
All right. Well, Jason, what a good time. I'm JR, your real estate friend, and we'll see you in the next video.